Hi everyone. It's great to see you again. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today, we have a brand new story to share with you. So, let's get started. Life would be easy if you did what you were told. She said that to me with a condescending smile while I was folding clothes, as if she were giving me some very important advice. I watched as she put my clothes in neat piles, choosing where everything should go, just like she did with everything else in our lives. I didn't answer right away. I knew that reacting right away led to longer fights after being married for 5 years, so I nodded and kept washing dishes. This time, though, something was different. It could have been the way she casually said I was like a child who didn't listen. Or maybe it was the result of a million times the same thing happening. I finally said, "I'm your husband, not your son." My voice was calmer than I thought it would be. Her hands stopped moving while she was folding. "Please excuse me. You talk to me like I'm something you need to train, not someone you love." The laugh that came next hurt more than any insult ever could. "Do not make a fuss. It's only my goal to make you a better person. Why do you feel so bad all the time?" Even though I turned back to the dishes, my mind was still going fast. Every choice was questioned, every taste was made fun of, and every accomplishment was played down. I was slowly going away and being replaced by a version of myself that caused the least amount of trouble. She continued as she came up behind me and said, "My mother always said men need guidance. She took great care of my dad until the day he died. They never fought because he knew what his job was." Inside me, something broke. It wasn't an explosion, but it felt like a rope that had been getting tighter for years finally gave way. The comfort came right away and was scary. I said in a whisper, "I'm not your dad." What did that mean? Her voice got sharper. I turned around to look at her. "You're becoming more like your mother, and I'm not your father." Her face changed right away. I had never seen such a clear case of anger before. "Why do you dare? Though I've given up my goals to build this life, I've done everything for you." I was already thinking about something else, though, and her usual tricks couldn't reach me. I could think straight for the first time in years. I said, "Let's talk about our relationship. This is bad for you." "There's nothing to talk about. You're being ungrateful and childish," she yelled as she stormed out of the kitchen. That night, I lay awake next to her asleep body and thought about how I had been controlling and manipulating her for years. She said that having different bank accounts was better for organization. Because she saw flaws in everyone, her friendships slowly died. I turned down the job offer because she said it would make our future less stable. Because I wanted to stay out of trouble, I let myself become a guest in my own life. But the fact that she said I was like her dad told me everything. I wasn't her partner. I was a project, someone to shape and hold in check. When I made my choice, dawn was just coming up. If following the rules would make my life easy, I would do it my way. By walking away, not by giving in. It was hard to say what would happen next, but for the first time in years, it was my choice. On the surface, the days after our fight in the kitchen seemed very normal. As we practiced routines and moved around each other, something had changed in the background. Patterns that I hadn't seen in years began to stand out to me. She casually looked at my phone's updates as she walked by. "Just want to know who's texting you this late," she'd say with a smile that barely reached her eyes. Due to the fact that partners shouldn't keep secrets, my passwords were ours. Even the clothes I chose had to be approved of by her, even though she said she was just giving me advice. "I tried one last time to be honest with you over dinner." I slowly told him, "I feel like I've lost myself in this marriage. We need to make sure that both of our needs are met." The fork stopped in the middle of her mouth. "Is this still about what I said?" She sighed deeply and said, "You're really dragging this out. Okay, I'm sorry if what I said made you feel bad. You know I only want what's best for us. For you or for us." I couldn't stop the words from coming out. Her face became more serious. That's not good if you can't tell the difference. I do everything I can to help our future. Someone needs to plan ahead. After that, the talk went back to topics that were already covered. What I did wrong, what she gave up, and how her parents' marriage worked because her dad knew how to settle. In some way, I felt bad about being rude by the end. I made an appointment with the therapist for my lunch break the next day. I did not tell anyone. The therapist told me that what you're talking about sounds like emotional control after I told her about some of our interactions. Respect and independence are important in healthy partnerships. I said in a weak voice, but she's not abusive. She never yells at me or makes threats. She said in a soft voice that control doesn't always look like anger. It is sometimes shown as love, safety, or knowing what's best. As I left that room, I felt a strange mix of relief and grief. I was given a list of books to read. I read a lot of books about codependency and emotional manipulation behind closed doors, putting them in my gym locker. That each page was like a mirror for my marriage. That weekend, while she went to see her mother, I went through our financial papers and made charts of our assets and debts. I looked into flats in a nearby city and figured out how much I could spend on my own. It was both scary and exciting to take these real steps. She brought her mother's criticism with her when she came back. Mom thinks you haven't been around much lately. She tells me I need to pay more attention to how you feel before it gets bad. What they said fits so well with what I had been reading about triangulation that I almost laughed. I told her that I'd rather you not talk about our marriage with your mother. We're just worried about you, she said in a sincere voice. You might want to talk to someone. These days you haven't been yourself. This was a strange thing for her to say after my secret therapy visit, but she wasn't worried about my health. It was because of the trouble with my cooperation. I made my final choice that night while she slept. The life she said would be easier because she was in charge had turned into a jail. I'd rather deal with uncertainty on my own than confidence that I can't change. For the first time in years, I had something that was only mine, hope. My exit plan would take time. It took precision and care to plan my exit. I went to a different bank and started a separate account. I then sent some of my paychecks to that account. Not too small to cause instant worry, but big enough to start an emergency fund. It was safe online because I scanned important papers while she was out with friends. Every little step was a quiet statement of freedom. The most surprising thing about this time was how my view changed. At work, I started to stand up taller and talk with more confidence. Even a coworker said something about the change. Keep doing what you're doing. You seem to be there more. I saw the irony. As I got ready to leave, I became more like myself. After 3 weeks of getting ready, she also noticed the change. She said with narrowed eyes over breakfast, "You've been distracted lately. Are you keeping me in the dark about something at work?" "Simply focused on a big job," I replied, keeping eye contact even though guilt was building up inside me. I hated lying, but years of experience had taught me that being honest would only lead to abuse. "I hope it's worth it," she said as she carefully stirred her coffee. "Your attitude at home has been disappointing. We could plan to get back in touch over the course of a week. My mom let us stay at their lake house." The advice, which was meant to be kind but was really just a way for her to get back in charge, made me even more sure that I was making the right choice. I gave a vague answer, "Let me check my schedule." That night, I signed a lease for a small apartment 20 minutes away for 6 months. I didn't expect the property manager to have it ready right away, but it did. I used my secret account to pay the deposit and got the keys with shaky hands. I felt a crazy mix of fear and excitement when I was standing alone in that empty apartment. The windows and walls that weren't covered with anything showed both weakness and opportunity. I had 2 days to get it ready as much as possible before I was supposed to leave. She was waiting for me at home with a glass of wine and that smile that used to make my heart race but now makes my stomach hurt. She began, "I was thinking about what you said a while ago about losing yourself." Her voice was sweet with fake understanding. "You might be right, let's work on that together." There was a moment of doubt. Was I responding too much? Could we make this right? "I even bought the book that your coworker suggested about talking to each other in a marriage," she went on, pointing to a package on the counter. My heart stopped beating. I didn't talk about any books. She looked at my emails or browsing records again. I took a sip of the wine she had poured me and said, "That's thoughtful. In fact, I'm pretty tired tonight. Would you mind if we talked more tomorrow?" Her smile got a little tighter, but not too much. "Yes, please do what you need." That night, as I lay awake and listened to her breathe next to me, I thought about what I would take with me and what I would leave behind. Suddenly, the weight of recovering my independence made the things I owned seem like nothing. I called in sick to work the next morning and waited for her to leave for yoga class. Then I put together 2 bags full of things she needed, like clothes, toiletries, important memories, and my grandfather's watch, which she had always hated. The speed with which I moved through our house felt almost automatic, like I was watching someone take apart their life. I wrote an explanation letter and left it on the kitchen counter. I made it clear that my choice wasn't made on the spur of the moment, but after years of careful planning. I put in my lawyer's contact information, another secret document, and the name of the referee I had researched. That day, as I drove away from our house, I finally knew what freedom meant. She had always made it sound like I was selfish or careless, but I had the right to write my own story, no matter how bad it was. It was very quiet in my new flat the first night I moved in. As I sat on my quickly bought futon, surrounded by boxes and basic items, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. My phone buzzed constantly, first with confused texts, then angry ones, followed by tearful voicemails that twisted my insides with familiar guilt. "Call me back, please. I have no idea what's going on. After everything we've built, how could you leave like this? We can act like this didn't happen if you come home now. My mom was always right about you." That night, I turned off my phone and slept better than in years. The next day, the storm really hit. She found my place of work and caused a scene in the hallway, so security had to walk her out. She called friends they both had and carefully crafted a story. I was having a mental breakdown and might have been having an affair. I needed help right away. Several people called me worried, and I lost track of how many times I calmly explained my point of view, being careful not to make fun of her even though the urge to do so was growing. Some friends picked sides right away, which was interesting. Support was given without any judgment by people who had seen hints of the relationship over the years. Others who had only seen the cute public side of our relationship were upset with me. The social effects hurt but made things clearer, like squeezing an infection out of a wound. Her strategies changed with scary accuracy. She switched from anger to worry when that didn't work. "I worry about how you're feeling." When worry didn't work, she tried remembering things. "Do you remember our first place to live? How pleased we were?" When I wasn't moved by nostalgia, she used mutual ties to put pressure on me. Even though it was hard, I stuck to my limits in a way that surprised me. That's what my doctor called it, but it felt more like remembering something that had been forgotten for a long time. I went back to our house while she was at work 3 weeks after I left to get more things. It was her mother who was waiting for me instead. In a rude voice, she said, "She's lost weight," as I put books in a box, over the kitchen door. "Not sleeping much? Did that meet your needs?" I stopped for a moment because I saw through the trick. I answered in a calm voice that I wanted a healthy relationship where both people had choices. That was not possible here. She replied, crossing her arms, that relationships need sacrifice. That was clear to my husband. When I looked at her, seeing how my wife was going to turn out, I felt an unexpected wave of kindness. I just said, "I'm sorry he did that," and kept packing. The details of division were a mess, but they could be figured out. Getting rid of debts, telling creditors, and moving addresses. Each job was a link between me and my old life. I carefully approached them, and for some reason, I felt good about regaining my executive freedom. The evenings were the worst. After years of being with someone all the time, being alone felt both freeing and strange. I would catch myself watching someone else move and getting ready to change how I behaved based on what I saw. It took months to stop that overvigilance. I planned how to spend those quiet hours by getting back into old hobbies, calling people I hadn't talked to in a while, and even taking a photography class in the evening. I had always been interested in, but she told me it wasn't possible. Every little move I made just for myself felt like a big deal. Papers were filed in court 60 days after leaving. After 90 days, we sat across from each other in mediation. Her eyes were fixed on me with a level of sensitivity that would have normally made me break. Instead, I kept a polite distance and focused on finding a fair answer instead of making peace emotionally. She said softly as we left the last lesson, "You'll feel bad about this. I will always know you better than anyone else." That thought made me feel better instead of scared for the first time. The person she knew, the less demanding version of me, was going away. It wasn't my plan to let anyone else get to know me so poorly again. 1 year after walking away, I barely recognized the man I was. She would have thought my apartment was empty without the books she didn't want, the art that speaks to me instead of matching the furniture, and a peace that no amount of outside approval could give me. The quiet that scared me before now makes me feel holy. 3 months ago, the divorce was completed with surprisingly little trouble. She tried to get even one last time by refusing to sign until I gave her the family treasures my grandmother left me. But my lawyer told her that they were never marital property, so she couldn't get them. When she signed the papers, she let out a dramatic sigh that would have made me apologize for hours. I've learned to spot the minor forms of control that I used to mistake for care. The friend who gets angry when I don't do what they say. The date who tests my limits by making small demands and watching how I react. The coworker who uses guilt to get what they want. Now, these factors make people immediately cautious instead of automatically complying. My job has grown in ways I didn't expect, and it's not because someone is always criticizing my goals or reminding me that I might fail. It paid off that I took chances. In a past life, I would not have been able to accept the raise I did last month. It forces her to travel sometimes, which she would have ruined by making up emergencies. Going on dates again has been both scary and interesting. I'm honest about my past and use it as a sort of filter. Some possible partners see my limits as obstacles that I need to get past. They don't get any more dates. Others respect them without saying a word because they know that healthy love lets each person be themselves. I'm not ready to make a commitment right now, but I'm also not afraid of connecting with someone either. The biggest change has been inside of me. I now understand my own worth without relying on what other people think of it. Making decisions, which used to be impossible because I was afraid of how she would respond, has become easy. What do I need? What is good for my health? These questions no longer make me feel ashamed when I ask them. Yesterday, I met her by chance at a get-together for our common friends. She's seeing a new guy, a quiet guy who watched her all the time to see how to act. We looked at each other across the room for a moment, and I saw a flicker of the old manipulative warmth, an offer to get back to old habits. She said we should get together sometime when we had to talk because it was the right thing to do. Now I'm in a much better place. We could talk about what went wrong. I honestly replied, "I'm glad you're doing well, but I think we both know what happened between us, and going over it again wouldn't help either of us." When she saw that the old hooks didn't catch anymore, her smile got bigger. She said in a sharp, accusatory voice, "You've changed." Of course, I agreed. That was the point. As I walked home afterward, I thought about her goodbye words, which had once made me decide to leave. Life would be easy if you did what you were told. In a way, she was right. Some things are easier when you obey. Things are chosen for you. Less responsibility is taken on. That road is clear, if narrow. But the ease she offered cost me my identity, my freedom, and even who I am. Instead of being easy, I decided to be hard. The uncertainty, the loneliness, and the challenges of full autonomy have made me feel more at ease than compliance ever could. How deeply relieving it is to live honestly. My life isn't great right now. There are days when you feel alone. I have to fully own up to the mistakes I make when I make choices. But even on the worst days, I wake up as myself and answer to my own morals instead of someone else's. And that freedom is the easiest thing I've ever known, no matter how hard it is. Our story is over. Do you want to subscribe our channel if you've made it this far? It really helps us a lot. I've picked out one more videos that I think you'll enjoy. You are welcome to click on them. I look forward to seeing you in the next story. Have a nice day.